your morning. And each and every morning, we want to thank you because time is valuable and you are taking out your time. Kids are off to school and you are spending your time with us. And for that, we always want to thank you. We always value you. So thank you for joining us. Today's conversation is going to be led by Ria, who's going to be leading the conversation. And so without further ado, my name is Alka.
My name is Ria, and welcome to our show.
So Ria, I'm going to pass the mic on to you.
All right. Thank you, Alka. So today, let me share my screen. I'm going to talk about the farmer who needs to protect his crops. The crops are his means of livelihood, and he needs to protect his crops from bunnies, bugs, and birds. So today's story is about the farmer who needs to protect his crops from bunnies, birds, and bugs. So today we're going to talk on this harmless creature, but it can do damage to the farmer's crop, which is his means of livelihood. So first we're going to talk on the bunnies. So lesson from the rich dad, Robert Kiyosaki's Increase Your Financial IQ, which is protecting financial IQ number 1 is protecting our money. A financial IQ number 2 is protecting our money. So today's lesson are, so taxes is our biggest expense. Taxes is our biggest expense. Number 2 lesson that I learned from reading the book is the job of the tax department is to, this is their hand, this is the paycheck, and this is the government bureaucrat. So the job of the tax department is to get our money and give it to the government bureaucrat. And the problem with this is the government bureaucrat, they are good with this. This is our money and it goes away, it flies. Why? Because they are good in spending the money. But this is my wrench. They do not know how to make the money. And because the book says they know how to spend and they do not know how to make, the government bureaucrat spend a lot of time on these things. They spend a lot of time on more ways and creative ways where we pay higher taxes. So let me repeat, because the government is good in spending and not making money, they spend time on creating more ways, creative ways, where we pay higher taxes. Lesson number 3. There is a tax program in the USA. It's called AMT. And what is AMT? It's alternative minimum tax. If this is true in the USA, this may be also true for other countries as well. Why? Because a lot of the countries, they follow what the USA do. So it may also be true for your country as well. So what the AMT, or the alternative minimum tax, is, let's look at what the history of this AMT to better understand the alternative minimum tax. So the AMT was created by the government in 1970. It was created in addition to tax. If you remember this diagram, this is I, which is income, and this is the expense. So this was created as an additional tax for those workers who make more than $60,000. Lesson number 3. It was a clever way to tax people 2 times. Imagine being taxed 2 times. Lesson number 4. The 60,000, where they intended the alternative minimum tax. If you make more than 60,000, you're going to have alternative minimum tax. The 60,000 was a lot of money in 1970 when this was created. Lesson number 5. Now, if you make $60,000, that is not a high income. So if we break this down again, that's the income and the expense. And we have money here. So this alternative minimum tax was intended for people who make more than 60,000, and that was a lot back in 1970. Now 60,000 is no longer high income. So what that means is the wealthy people do not pay the alternative minimum tax. Now, people who make more than 60,000, they call high income workers. These are the people that pay the alternative minimum tax. This is point number 6. Point number 7. So as we know, we are already taxed. We pay a lot of tax on our income, on our investments, These are apartments. On our abode, our home, we pay taxes on our transportation, our cars. We pay taxes on energy, oil, electricity, gasoline. We pay taxes when we travel. We pay taxes on our clothes. We pay taxes on our food. We pay taxes on our education. That's me graduating. So we already pay a lot of tax.
Mhm.
Now, point number 8. This is a coin. The book says we pay tax upon tax. Point number 8. We also pay on a lot of taxes on things we do not even know about. Point number 10. The taxes is the price tag. They told us that the taxes are being sold to us, that they are good for the society. And they are good. Some are good. Point number 11. This is a community of people. So the society's problem just gets bigger and bigger. Why? Because the bureaucrats all they know is when they have this money, it flies away. They know how to spend it. But they do not know how to make it. So then what happens? Then what they know is these are coins. They throw money. They throw money, more money, to solve problems. That's point number 11. Point number 12. When more money do not solve the problem, then what happens? The government creates they create new, clever texts with clever names, according to the book. So point number 13. Since the problem just gets bigger, what happens? Then we pay a higher percentage on our taxes. So just as, and these are stack of coins. These are my coins. There's two words which are important. So just like compound interest, that's two words. Compound interest makes us wealthy. These same coins compound taxes makes us poor. It's actually negative. So therefore, financial IQ number 2, which is when we have a house, we have our money, we make a fence around it. That's your fence. And there's an island, we make a bridge. There's bodies of water in here. So therefore, financial IQ number 2, which is protecting our money, is very, very important. So point number 15, we therefore this is my wrench, and I have a symbol of French for making. So we therefore do not make a lot of money if our money, we therefore do not make a lot of money if our money we're making goes to this red little things. These are sharks. They are what we call financial predators. So we do not make a lot of money if the money we're making goes to these financial predators. And that is why learning financial IQ number 2, which is protecting our money, is very important. So to recap on today's lessons, the story of the farmer who needs to protect his crop from bunnies, bugs, and birds. The farmer who needs to protect his crops from bunnies, birds, and bugs. And today's topic is all about the bunnies. So the bunnies, the book likens it to the government bureaucrat. Taxes is our biggest expense. The job of the tax department is to get the money so that he can give it to the government bureaucrat. But the problem with this is they are good in spending the money, but they do not know how to make the money. So when you spend the money, but you do not know how to make the money, you spend more time to think of more ways, of more creative ways for your people to pay higher taxes. There is a tax program in America. It's called Alternative Minimum Tax. That's what AMT stands for. Alternative Minimum Tax was created in 1970. This was an additional tax created for people who are making more than $60,000 of income per year. It was a clever way for people to be taxed 2 times. Now, $60,000 in 1970 was not a lot of money. Well, $60,000 in 1970 was a lot of money. Now bring it to today. 60,000 is not a lot of money. It is not considered a high income. So 60,000, more than 60,000 people who are high income earners, they pay the alternative minimum tax. The wealthy, the rich, do not pay the alternative minimum tax. The book says we are already taxed. We pay a lot of taxes on our income, on investments, on our home, on our education, on our cars, on our oil and gas, on our travel, on clothes, on food. So we pay already a lot of taxes. We pay tax upon tax. We pay tax on things we do not even know about. Taxes are being sold to us as being good for the society. And yes, they are good. Some are good. The society's problem only gets bigger and bigger. Because why? The book says the bureaucrat is good in spending the money, but they do not know how to make the money. So what happens? They just throw money to the problem. And the more money that they throw do not solve the problem. They just create more ways to tax us, and they name it with clever names. Now, since the problems just gets bigger and bigger, why? Well, number one, it gets bigger and bigger. So what they do is they increase the percentage we pay on our taxes. And just as compound interest makes us wealthy, compound taxes makes us poorer. Therefore, according to the book says, financial IQ number 2, which is protecting our money, is important. These are the sharks. If we make more money, we've got to learn how to protect it. And that's why financial IQ number 2 is important. So we become wealthy if we make more money. However, if we do not protect our money from these financial predators, then we will never get ahead. So that is why the book emphasizes that we all need to know, financial IQ number 2, which is protecting our money. And there's going to be more lessons on how we protect our money as we continue our Alka and Ria show in the next episodes. So hopefully you learned something from the story of the farmer who needs to protect his crops from birds, bunnies, and bugs. And today's lesson was about the bunnies.
Absolutely, Ria. You know what? That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. And friends, hope you took a lot of notes, as so did I took notes, because this was valuable. So Ria, I have a couple of questions. So when you talked about point number 3, is that, you know, we are taxed twice. Who wants to be taxed twice? If we can avoid being taxed twice, I mean, it goes to, you know, it's a bureaucracy. The government wants to, they come up with these creative ways. They come up with ways to like tax us any which way, right?
Yes. So just remember, according to the book, right, if you're an employee, if I'm an employee, the income that I get from my employer, I'm already being taxed. When I use that income for my expense or for leisure, for food, for paying the home, for travel, for gasoline, for oil, I'm again being taxed on the income that I get from working.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, they just come up with clever ways. And then point number 7, you talked about the wealthy people, and I have notes myself as well, that, I mean, the wealthy people, they don't pay tax. And for example, you know, we know that Warren Buffett, he pays 0 tax.
Yes.
His secretary, she pays tax. And yet I think his CEO, he pays tax, but Warren Buffett, he doesn't.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah. So could you explain that to the viewers? How come he doesn't? How come the secretary does? And how come the CEO pays tax?
Yes. So the tax are there to, you know, well, protect the country, right? It's used for military, it's used for roads and bridges. So taxes are good, but some taxes are not good. Now, because the government knows how to spend the money, they do not know how to create the money. And the government has a lot of problems that it needs solved. So the way to encourage the citizens to help the government solve the problem is to stimulate, to incentivize them. They're incentivizing Warren Buffett and the other entrepreneurs out there to help solve the community's problem. So the way to give back, the government to give back to them for solving the government's problem, is to give them tax rate, tax write-off, tax deductions. So when a business have expenses, then they're only taxed to what's left. And they also, not only are they just taxed that way, with what's left, there are tax incentives more than just that. They get, you know, a lot of tax breaks that ordinary workers do not get. Ordinary employees such as you and me do not get. Because why? We're employees, we're not the big business. So what this tells us is, because success leaves clues and all we've got to do is pick up the crumbs, we have to put our thinking cap on. The big businesses are getting the tax breaks. Yes, they have expenses, but then they're only gonna be taxed to what's left. If I'm a worker, I'm already taxed at my income. I have expenses that I need to pay. Those expenses are again taxed. So that's where I'm double taxed. So then if I put my thinking cap on, what do I need to do so that I'm also enjoying what Warren Buffett is enjoying, paying 0 tax. So we have to reverse engineer what the billionaires are doing, what the big businesses are doing. So we have to reverse engineer what they're doing, and what they're doing is solving the government's problem. The IRS is a map, it's a roadmap. finding the treasure at the end of the map is the tax breaks. So all you got to do is follow the map, follow what the IRS or your government wants you to do. And at the end of that map is the treasure. They give you tax breaks that the big businesses enjoy. So then it's never too late. All we've got to do is learn the education right now and start doing what the big businesses, Warren Buffett is doing. Of course, we're not going to be billionaires in a day, but if we never start now, we're never going to get to our destination.
That's a great point. If we don't start now, then we'll never know what is possible. Why would we want to pay tax twice? So my final question is, even at the banks, you know, we invest our money in the banks and the banks charge us interest, right? So maybe that's not, also, would you guide the viewers that maybe, you know, investing your money, putting your money in the bank, because we know that, you know, they might charge you X% of interest, maybe say at 2% or 1%, but putting your money in the bank is maybe not the best way? Or what would you suggest that, you know, take that money and invest it?
So yeah, so if I have $10,000 that I put into the bank, right? If I'm a new physician starting out, and let's say I have 10,000, if I put it in the bank, it's going to be negative. Why? Because of the invincible tax called inflation. So if I put it aside, whatever interest I get from that 10,000, if the interest is more than $10, it is the moral duty, the obligation of the bank to report it to the government, to the IRS. So the bank will send me a 1099. It's an interest form that the bank would give to me and would give to the IRS, indicating how much money I earned. So if they give me that form, that means my 10,000 earned more than $10. So let's say I earned $10 in a year's time.
Yeah.
10,000 makes you $10. That's not a lot of money, but look at it this way. If that 10,000, I use that money and invested it in my personal development, and then I learned about apartment investing, or I learned how to make a business, that 10,000 will double, will triple. It all depends on you as a leader. It all depends on your action. So that 10,000 can double, triple, can make infinite money for you, because once it's deployed and it's successful, it continues to put money into your pocket. So I would, with putting money in the bank, yes, for emergency cases, but once you have filled that emergency bank account, use that money to invest in your own personal development.
Absolutely. And, you know, and that makes perfect sense, because, you know, so as friends, as Ria said, you know, you got to start now, because if you don't start now, you will never know what is possible. You will never know where you can get tax breaks. You will never know where you could, you know, not have the government take away all the money, not have the government, the bureaucracy that happens, and you all know that, you know, they take our money, they spend it to wherever they want to spend it. And so use our money wisely and learn now how we can protect our money, protecting from the government, protecting ourselves, and for our future and for the future generations to come. You know, we want to support ourselves and not have all the money go to the government. Ria, thank you for sharing that amazing information. Really,
you're welcome. Valuable. There's two things I would like to share before we say goodbye to our listeners. Number one, remember, taxes are our biggest expense. It is not our home. Taxes are our biggest expense. Number two, it is our patriotic duty to reduce our taxes. It is our patriotic duty to reduce our tax. And you'll say, reduce? It is our patriotic duty to reduce our taxes, Ria? You don't want to pay tax? I love to pay taxes. But the government, if I follow the roadmap, what the government wants me to do, they're giving me the gold, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They're giving me tax breaks. So in order for me to get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I have to take all this risk, just following the roadmap to get to the end of the rainbow. That means I'm doing what the government wants me to do. So yes, it is our patriotic duty to pay our taxes and to reduce our tax. If you are able to reduce your tax, that means you are stimulating the economy of your community. You are stimulating the economy of your country. You're providing jobs. And that's a thing that we need to be joyful about. We need to celebrate because we are providing jobs. That's
wow. Amazing, amazing. So friends, it is our perception, is how we're willing to see if the government is giving you tax breaks, is showing you the pot of gold and, you know, just go and grab it. It's up to us to grab